Good morning. I am going to talk with you about the fact that we can't go back. And what I mean by that is going to become clear slowly, but it's going to become clear because it is really true that we can't go back. And there are many implications to the fact that we continue to want to go back and that we can't go back, and that we should be moving forward, but we aren't. And well, let me start out by saying something about I heard something on the news about some book that was written by some guy. I don't even care who he was, because I'm not gonna promote his book. I find that so stupid, all these books. If there's going to be a change, the change is not going to come about due to a book, okay? The change is going to come about because people begin to talk with each other, and listen, of course. And if you've watched my videos, you should know that there's a different way of talking that I'm talking about than the usual way of talking. The usual way of talking is actually not talking. It's just the pretension that we talk. It's just the pretension that we listen. But nobody's really talking when there is a speaker who's not hearing himself, and nobody's really listening when speakers do not listen to themselves. So we're just pretending to talk, we're pretending to listen. That's what we're used to. But in any case, I heard about this so-called theory which assumes that societies go through a particular cyclus, ups and downs, and these cycli they can these cycles, they can be compared to the seasons, and they follow each other in the same way that after winter it becomes spring again, and then summer, supposedly. And yes, this has to do with the different generations and with the way in which they all perceive the world differently, and then they create a new vision, a new whatever it is that they find is important. And so society presumably evolves or devolves, whatever you want to call it. And well, I've got news for you. We cannot go back. We may want to, we may try to, and we try to in multiple ways. There's Christians who say we've got to go back to the Bible, we've got to believe in God. And there's Muslims who say, oh, we've got to believe in Allah. But neither the Christians nor the Muslims nor the Jews, the Jews who have their belief, and the Buddhists, of course, also, all the religious people have their beliefs about what is supposedly better and what we should do. But we cannot go back to any of these superstitions. Yes. So, moreover, and this is really where the rubber hits the road, especially in Western democratic societies where people have achieved individual freedoms the genie is out of the bottle. The genie of the individual who is not going to want to give up on his or her freedom. The genie is out of the bottle. You cannot get a person who has tasted that freedom. Yeah, we may have only tasted it and not really achieved it, but we've definitely tasted it. Yeah, we have tasted what it is like to not be determined by the group, determined by the community, by whoever we identify with as our team. No, we have all tasted what it is like to not be inhibited by that, to be free, to do what you want, to be who you are. And for better and worse, our taste of freedom has been sweet but brief. It has been, you could say, uprooting, in that sense that we don't want to go back. Yeah, the people who have dared to live their own lives, the people who have had the courage to live their own lives, to step away from the group, to become independent individuals, autonomous individuals, self-reliant individuals, free human beings. Those people, they may have succeeded in certain ways and failed in other ways. And I should say they have mostly failed, because they haven't achieved the language that I call embodied language. By no means. They still talk in exactly the same way as they've always talked in the group, even while they supposedly are individually free. So, given the fact that individuals haven't made the switch, the necessary, the inevitable change, the inevitable mutation, if you will, from disembodied language to embodied language, since they haven't done that, they haven't changed their language in the way that language became something which they as speakers began to listen to themselves. So in embodied language, speakers listen to themselves. This is an entirely different way of talking, an entirely different way of dealing with language than in disembodied language, when speakers do not listen to themselves. They want other people to listen to them. And they're only busy, preoccupied with listening to other people. They never listen to themselves in disembodied language. And that's what everybody is used to. This is what everybody does. And so their language completely contradicts their individualism. So they live in an eternal contradiction as long as their language doesn't reflect the reality of being an individual. Now, okay, so what I read or what I heard about, because I watched some interview with some guy who wrote that book and blah blah blah, and I only watched a little bit because I was already pretty soon very bored, because it's just another academic pontificating some theory, and I don't give a shit about that. I really don't. No, I'm too much of an individual already to still cave in for that stupid academic infringement of my freedom, because I have been an academic myself. And I've retired from academia. I have abandoned academia. I have truly said to myself, no, I'm no longer part of that. I've tried to be, but no, I don't want to be an academic. And that's why I never published any book, because I don't see the use of it. I see the use of having a conversation like this. That's what I find important. But nobody seems to understand or to acknowledge the importance of that we should have all embodied language in which we listen to ourselves. So anyways, going back to this author, he was talking about, I don't know, these different cycles that societies go through, and there might be some truth to it, you know. I mean, of course, you know, civilizations, they at some point thrive, or they at some point decline, and at some point they sort of start to begin to fall apart. And yeah, you've seen that in various cultures. So yeah, okay, there's truth to that. However, we cannot go back, because embodied language is here. I have it. You may not believe me, and you may not realize how important it is that I have really established myself in my embodied language, and I have permanently stepped away from any kind of group behavior that would prevent me from having embodied language. That's what it comes down to. And so whether people acknowledge the difference between disembodied language and embodied language or not, that difference, it is the issue of our time. Because with disembodied language, as I've said, you are trying again to go back to the group behavior. The group behavior which is more of the same old. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I was looking for a spot in between the bushes to escape from the path here. Thank you, sir. Have a good New Year. So, we cannot go back to the group behavior, which is disembodied language. And everybody, of course, is having embodied language and is trying to hang on to their disembodied language, which is the group behavior I'm talking about. And yet we can't. It is as clear as day. You can't go back to how things have been before. No. And the language that is needed to express the new is embodied language. There is just no way around it. So I'm gonna walk here. I could have walked already. I shouldn't have let these people let me pass through, but they're so kind. You know, I could already see way ahead that they were already stepping aside with their dogs to let me pass. And that's very friendly. So I appreciate that. But I should have already gotten off of my bike. It didn't occur to me to do that. I saw them in the distance, and they were sort of waving me on, saying like, okay, we're stepping aside, you can pass. So that's how that went. Anyways, individualism and the language of individualism is the future of mankind, the future of freedom. There is no other freedom than the freedom of the individual. Can we just repeat that as the truth of yeah, free societies, there is no other freedom than the language of the individual, embodied language. That is what I keep talking about, and nobody seems to get it. It's just unbelievable how stuck we are, how stubbornly unwilling we are to listen to ourselves, to begin to talk with ourselves and to say, yes, of course, it is true. And there is really no way back, no matter how you turn it. You can keep pushing your disembodied language agenda, which you always do. Everybody does that. Yeah, disembodied language is a coercive phenomenon. It is a forceful, unnatural phenomenon. It is something that was forced on you, that was, you were punished if you didn't do it. And if you would do what I do, you would also be punished. And so I am having this conversation here with myself just for the simple fact that I refuse to be punished for this. Yeah? I just don't want anybody to criticize this. I don't want anybody to have some stupid opinion about this because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I know what this is. And so I will go on with it regardless of people who want to make it seem as if, look, this is what is happening, okay? Let's say, for instance, I'm just giving you an example of what happens in the world. Let's say in Russia, at a certain moment, there was Gorbachev, yeah? And there was, who was it again? Yeltsin. Anyways, there were Russian leaders back then. The Russian, Soviet Union, which has existed under communism, under Stalin and whatnot. The Berlin Wall was at a certain moment taken down. And relations between Western democratic countries and Russia somewhat improved. And there was no longer this big threat because that was called the Cold War. I don't know if you heard of that. Anyways, the Cold War presumably was over, and we had our rockets stationed, aimed at each other, so that each of us would back off and that we would just keep the peace, so to speak. Well, Russia at this moment, of course, is a bunch of oligarchs, who have become incredibly rich and who are all friends with the party. You know it. And the same is true in China. It cannot be any different. Yeah. And of course, they do enough to get the public support, or at least they do enough in terms of suppressing the public discourse. They do enough in terms of censoring anybody who goes against them and oppressing everybody who has a different opinion. Okay, well, let me just again describe what briefly happened, because let's just compare what is happening there now to what was happening there under, let's say, if you compare what's happening in China now to what was happening under Mao, now is of course better, in the sense that people are not as massively murdered as they were under Mao, and in the same way under Stalin, many people were murdered. And some people get murdered also by these guys here, but not as many. And why is that? Well, I don't know. Apparently people get something which they want, and they are not dissatisfied enough to overthrow them, to risk their lives, or to fight back, to push back, and to attain freedom. But in any case, okay, that's in those societies. That's China. And then there's Cuba also. There's South America, where you have their various dictators, and so forth. I'm saying, oh, you have Iran. Iran, at a certain moment, women were just wearing normal Western clothes, and women were going to universities, and and Lebanon was starting to become westernized, like more modern, more equal rights for people and everything. Turkey, similar thing, yeah. And then what happened with these societies? Then they turned back the clock because people were getting too mouthy. People were starting to be too free. We gotta turn back the clock. And then all of a sudden, all these new rules were, reintroduced again. And all of a sudden, they were clamping down on all the freedoms. Yeah. Oh no, we are not individually free. We are supposed to conform. We're supposed to adhere to these laws, that laws, and etc., etc. And so with laws and with armies and with police and with torture and with all kind of horrible, horrible things, people have forced each other with their disembodied language into all sorts of conformity, into all sorts of obedience, into all sorts of mechanical behavior, into all sorts of distractions, and into all sorts of, meaningless activities which supposedly keep them happy, yeah? The Romans, they had a big Colosseum where, people were, gladiators, and supposedly it was great fun to see them all kill each other and slaughter each other and slaughter animals and all that. And we still have that in a sense. It's not much different. So, but what I'm saying here is, there has been Western Europe where people are free. There has been Australia, England, Canada, America especially, where we have the freedom of speech. I heard that a man in Britain had said some unpleasant things and is now being arrested. An elderly person had said some nasty things on Facebook or whatever, on social media, so he's being arrested for something, some stupid thing that he said, and it's not even violent or whatever. He just made people feel uncomfortable, apparently, with what he said. Well, that's exactly the very crux of the freedom of speech, that I can make you feel uncomfortable, and it's still my right and my freedom to say that, and we have the freedom to say what we want to say, even though it may stroke you in the wrong way. So I don't agree with any religion. I don't even agree with atheism. I don't even agree with, I don't know. I heard Richard Dawkins, the great biologist, who was having his membership withdrawn from the atheist group that he felt he belonged to. But no, he doesn't want to belong to that, because the atheist group caved in to the transgender mania, and therefore they were no longer adhering to the basic facts of human biology. And he just, in an interview, he said, well, as a biologist, he says, gender is just a matter of, there's only two genders. And that's it. End of discussion. and he says, and there's no other conversation there, because the whole of medicine is based on that, and the whole of evolutionary theory is based on that, the whole of biology is based on, and to just all of a sudden change all that because there's some sort of a political group that wants to change that, it's absurd. But this is the group behavior that is being continued with our disembodied language. He had to withdraw, and good for him. Now, of course, there have been also in other countries, moments, yeah, also in Lebanon, where I just said, and in other Middle Eastern countries, there have been times where things were a little bit more loosened. But for the most part, it hasn't loosened because they want to maintain power, and the only way to maintain power is by inferring group behavior. Yeah? I mean, if I am an individual, then what kind of power do I have over anyone? I don't have any power over anyone because I am just myself. So the whole issue of power has to do with group behavior. But we've never looked at that. And yeah, you can say there is no freedom when there is no safety, when there is no, yeah. But when do we ever create that safety for ourselves? Yeah. I mean, even in oppressive countries, even in totalitarian societies, individuals could just walk by themselves alone without anybody there and talk out loud with themselves and attain embodied language. And if they would have a friend or somebody that they get along with and who would also do the same thing, they would be able to have this embodied language, what I have here, this not disembodied language, but disembodied language. Yeah. So you would have anywhere the possibility, yeah, I mean, of course, it's more possible in Western societies than in all these oppressive countries. But anywhere around the world, people have the opportunity to speak with themselves, to walk by themselves, to be alone for a little bit, talk out loud with themselves, and to verify, like, yeah, if I listen to myself, okay, yeah, then I have embodied language, yeah, not disembodied language. Okay. So it is possible all across the world for everyone to have what I have. And yeah, I hope that will happen, or I hope that will happen. Yeah, I do hope that will happen, but I know that this is the only way forward, because it is human nature to, on the one hand, yeah, you want to belong to something, but you don't want to belong to something which endlessly forces you, yeah? So, when you are an individual, yeah, you become part of not a group, but those people who are individuals, they recognize each other. Those people who have embodied language, they recognize each other. And if they don't, yeah, then there is no embodied language. Yeah, if they don't. No, embodied language is very straightforward. If you listen to someone with embodied language, you hear someone who's having a good time. You hear someone who is enough unto himself, who is not wanting to have any power over anyone, because that's just not in the nature of embodied language. That's not in the nature of true human interaction. So the moment you put yourself out there as someone who wants to have power over other people, you're no longer having embodied language. Yeah. And of course, we all want to have power in some way or other, whether it is with our so-called knowledge or whether it is with our, with our skills, with our expertise, with our beliefs, yeah. And but also with our problems and with our because we play the victim card, and we feel oppressed, yeah. We have a chip on our shoulder about people who are no good to us. So people demand each other's attentions in all sorts of ways, with their illnesses, with their malfunctioning, with their problems, and with their superficial nonsense, with their phony way of life. Yes, yeah. And here I am on my YouTube channel just talking about the fact that no, we cannot go back to the group, whichever group we are talking about. Group behavior is outdated, period. Once we have embodied language, group behavior is done with, is a thing of the past. So we are never going to go back to some sort of a cozy sense of belonging to the same group, restoring that sense of community that people are talking about. Yeah, after every war, after every upheaval, after every calamity, people have come together, and oh, the best of human being, the best of mankind came out. Well, let me tell you something. At this day and age, what is happening across Western countries and what is happening in America, and even though Trump has come to power, and even though, yeah, we are going to have a new president shortly, I look forward to it. I am very happy about it, but it remains to be seen whether people are going to wake up to the reality of embodied language, which means that we as Americans are not a group, but we, the people, are individuals. We, the people, are individuals. And let me just rephrase that again. We, the people, is I, the person. We, the people, is I, the person. I, the individual who says what he can say, what he wants to say, what she wants to say, what she is capable of saying, what she is wanting to hear, what means something to him or to her. That is the future. And so there is no belonging to any group. There is no belonging to, yeah, as Americans, we are all individuals. And we, the people, should be we, the individuals. Maybe we should change that. Yeah? Because that is my, yeah, conclusion of this talk. We, the individuals. Isn't it something? We cannot go back to we, the people. We cannot go back to some sort of group thing. And we want to do that, yeah, in the left zone or the right zone, yeah, the red zone, the blue zone. We want to talk in terms of this kind of politics or that kind of politics. But we need to talk in terms of having embodied language. We need to talk and have embodied language instead of disembodied language. And yeah, we can continue to have disembodied language and have more disembodied language, and that's what we're probably going to do. But that's not gonna be helpful. That's not gonna move us forward. And good morning, how are you doing? Hey.
So far, so good.
Happy New Year. Can I still say it? Hey doggy. Hello. Hey doggy. Little doggy came saying hello to me. It is something. I feel my cold has finally cleared a little bit. My wife is still having it, but hopefully she'll get over it soon too, as well. I guess there's still some more that they want to say. Morning. Because it is such it's such an issue that we have achieved some sort of a freedom, and yet we do not have the language that I'm talking about. Oh. The language that creates space. Yeah. The language of freedom, the language of individual freedom. And the language which once achieved, once acknowledged, once you acknowledge the difference between listening to yourself while you speak and not listening to yourself while you speak. Yeah, once you experience the difference, because it is an experience. You don't have to understand it. In the beginning, you can't understand it, because it is incredible that you have been involved in this disembodied language all the time. And it is almost overwhelming to acknowledge that you have always engaged in disembodied language. And then when you begin to engage in embodied language, you feel it, you experience it, you know it, and yet it's almost like it seems so elusive that you can listen to yourself, that you can hear yourself, that you can feel what you're saying. Why are you not doing that? Why do you keep missing out on that? Yeah. There's all sorts of reasons, which you will discover if you continue with it. But initially, it's like a big puzzle. It's like a big enigma. It's a big mystery almost, like, wow, that you can have that you can just be without problems all of a sudden just because you have embodied language. And you just go like, that cannot be true, and it is true. Now I must be believing it. No, you're not believing anything. Yeah. But yeah, no, individual freedom supersedes everything. And you cannot go back to some sort of a, superficial conformity, some superficial group behavior. And yes, you will do what you need to do to survive, and you will do what you need to do to get by. And that means that you don't get involved in disembodied language as much as possible. You will stay away from it as much as possible, which means you are alone, which means you can be alone, which means that you prefer to be alone. There's nothing wrong with being alone. And so you don't care about the community. Forget about the community. You're not going back to the community. You're fine on your own. You don't need the community. And yes, you have outgrown the community. Yeah? And you don't need to be part of a community to have embodied language. And embodied language never results in this dreadful sense that you are part of a community. I did not create a community. If I was having disembodied language like all the other people, they always create a community. Yeah, I don't care about the community. I'm sick and tired of that word, community. I am my own person. And no, I don't say this because I'm a transgender. No, I don't say this because I have identity problems. No, I know exactly who I am. And that's why I speak the way I do. And that's why I continue with this. Yes. And only those who have their own experience of what this is like, those are the only people that I'm interested in. I don't care for anybody else. I just don't. I mean, why should I? And even if they're there, yeah, it is still, in such a way that they completely walk on their own legs. They live their own lives. I don't have any involvement with them in the sense that I get involved with them or that they get involved with me. They just live their own lives. That's just how it is with embodied language. And that's how it's fine. It's beautiful. Yeah. And all of this is also covered up by your group behavior you call spirituality, whatever it is, Because whatever your spiritual aspirations are, it's always a group behavior. Yeah. And it's of course also covered up by your academia, by whatever it is. The hoops that you have to jump through to get where you want to be. Yeah. In society, all the group behavior that goes with that, and to make your career and to climb the ladder of social status. Yeah. All of that is group behavior. And then there is of course your competitiveness, that you want to win and that you want to come out on top and that you want to be famous and well known, and of course you want to be loved. You want to be accepted. You want to be approved. But why don't you approve yourself? Why don't you love yourself? Why don't you let yourself be who you are so that you can fit where you are right now, so that your language fits with what you experience? Yeah. That cannot happen with your disembodied language. If you do not listen to yourself, it cannot happen. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. And so inasmuch as we can keep on forcing other people to do what we want, because we can continue to do that, and that's what we do, with our armies and with our laws and with our police and with our requirements. In embodied language, we don't do any of that. And yes, it may seem as if I also do that because I have said that I don't want to talk with anybody anymore for a year, at least. Because, I want people to figure it out on their own. You need to figure it out on your own. You cannot figure it out with me. And if you want to figure it out with me, I don't like it. I don't want that. I don't want you to use me that way. I am not available for that. I only want to have embodied language just like this. And and that's not my requirement. That's just how I live. So I take full responsibility for that. I don't harm anybody. I don't force anybody. I simply say, no, I can only exist like this. I need to be like this. It has taken me a long time actually to sort of just really come to terms with this. That I've always been this way. But I figured it out. And I'm not going back. And other people may want to go back. You hear that. People have converted again to Christianity. People have whatever. People have converted. Have become a Muslim. Or they become a Buddhist. It looks really pathetic. These Western people with their orange robes and stuff. It's just so stupid. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I was almost going to say, do you hear? Do you hear how silent it is? Do you hear it? Plenty of water. It has stopped raining. There's still something that I want to add, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I am just waiting for it to become expressed, and then when I've said it and I know that was it, everyone can have that experience, you know. Everyone can have that experience that there's something you had wanted to say. You may not have known what it was, but there was something that wasn't unsaid, and you had wanted to say it, and then once you say it, if you get to say it, yeah, you feel how good it is that you have said it. And this is especially the case, of course, when you say it in such a way that you listen to yourself. Yeah. Because if you do not listen to yourself, it's never good enough. It's never what you want it to be. Now, that's what I wanted to say as a conclusion. Okay. So the individual only goes forward in freedom